A very good morning to you and welcome to Morning Express. My name is Trix Ingado. Today on the show, we shall be giving you the very latest in sports at the tail end of the program. But before that, we shall be taking you through our papers and seeing what's happening. COVID-19, the pandemic is obviously a big story, but of course, new twists and turn and corruption rearing its ugly head yet again as far as this country goes in terms of management. So we're going to be looking at all the stories surrounding that and much more. But of course, we have more on the show.
Absolutely, and on the way it is, which is going to be after the newspaper review, we'll be looking at the role of opposition in the country. Of course, COVID-19 has reared the ugly head of corruption yet again. And of course, there's accusations and counter-accusations of who should be responsible to ensure that the money and the plunder does not continue to be wasted. That's a question that we're going to be looking at right here on Morning Express. Also, Katiba at 10, the Constitution at 10. Later on, we're going to be having Yashpal Guy coming and, well, giving us an overview of how we have scored as a country in terms of the Constitution. And remember, we're also looking at maybe having a referendum to change that same Constitution. Is it too early to do that? That's a discussion that we're going to be having. And of course, we invite you to be part of that discussion. It really is about our country, and therefore, you are a stakeholder. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express. If you'd like to tweet, Trix is at Trix Ingado. I am at Michael G. Gitonga, and we'll love to hear what your take is on that as we continue with the show. So do stay with us right here on Morning Express as we've got your morning covered.
Absolutely. And joining me for the press review part of the show is Joe Mutambo, who's former Mwingi Central Member of Parliament, as well as Ambrose Wedder, who's a lawyer and a canon. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Now, speaking of that corruption that has shown up amidst the fight against COVID-19, we are having a war of words right here. On the Standard this morning, we're told war erupts over COVID funds probe. Now, a lot of politicians have spoken about this, and some would argue that these sentiments are based on their political stance. Now, we have the Deputy President, who is seemingly an outsider, coming out and saying and condemning ODM leader Raila Odinga for a seeming vague and not very hard stance on the war against the COVID-19 corruption. So he has said this morning, the pretentious former opposition, now turned lord of corruption, attempted defense of COVID grand larceny is not shocking. And then we have the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga saying, how does that become a loss when government has given someone a tender? It would be a loss if this was a form of monopoly that was created. And then we have Musalia Mudavadi. The evangelicals have thrown their sentiments into this, backing the government. Musalia Mudavadi wants a commission of inquiry formed to deal with this. And then we have the Kenya National Union of Nurses throwing darts at ODM as well, saying they will not allow ODM to defend graft when Kenyans are dying over poor health services. So I'll start with you, Mr. Wedder. What is your take on this ongoing situation?
Yeah, I think definitely you start with the Deputy President. He must be gleefully stroking the fires and feeling very happy because he is being cleansed. Remember, at one time, the ODM people, led by Honorable Raila Odinga, had called him the high priest of corruption. Now he's being cleansed. Now he's saying, you see, I'm outside, I'm a spectator, and the thefts are deeper. They're huge. They're even worse. So the accusations were basically political. I think that basis motivates why he's also stroking the fires. And then he also wants the Kenyans to see that the handshake was not for their general good. The handshake was for eating and looting. Secondly, when you look at the reaction by Honorable Raila Odinga, I really think he's not been briefed well. And his reaction is not in line with the debate that is being discussed about the loss of funds or inflated figures or money which cannot be traced or things which were never bought and reached the people they are supposed to have reached. According to him, he has reacted on the process. And even the way he has reacted, I think it is like justified. So himself and the evangelicals may be able to, may want to be playing buying what government is saying. But the nurses, on the other hand, are saying, no, we are on the ground, we have seen there's a problem. So corruption itself in the Ministry of Health, I'm told from friends that has been there. There are cartels. Sometimes the minister may not know what is going on. There are people who are fully entrenched, they have been entrenched there, and they perpetuate this theft. You know, in a crisis, the procurement laws allow for direct procurement. And that is where the loophole is. That is where now you get your friend, you get your colleague, you get people with whom you eat, and you say, let's give so and so, and that fellow will then share with us. So at the end, something is inflated, and then you say it is emergency, but all in all, it is itself grand corruption, which is wrong, which is bad, which should never have been allowed. So those who are supporting, they support, either they don't understand it, or they don't know, or they're buying one side. Otherwise, when there's smoke, there is fire. You look at it, and I think something is wrong, and government, the president should lead investigations to ensure that this is done. It should ensure that the investigators people are brought to book. It is wrong at this critical time when we are dying for people to make huge sums. Even if we always say that when you are cooking a large bowl of meat, occasionally you taste it. But now, instead of tasting, these guys have now transferred the whole bowl and they have just left only soup. That is not right and should never be allowed to go on.
In the water. Now, Honorable Mutambo, your take on the alleged COVID profiteering that is happening and how our leaders are reacting. What do you make of the call for a commission of inquiry that would look into it and make heads and tails of what is happening?
What is disappointing is the way leaders are reacting, because most of our politicians tend to be reacting or eating the bread, the buttered side. People are saying what they think is right to themselves and what they think it will favor them, but not Kenyans. The answers they are given when the issue of corruption comes, they respond to those questions as per their political realignment, which is so unfortunate, as opposed to the facts and the truth of what is happening in the ministry. And this is what is going to hurt this country. And this is where I feel that something is wrong. The issue of, I like the idea of calling, forming a team to investigate. But the question is, how many commissions, how many teams are we going to have to investigate matters once they arise? Because I believe in our constitution, we have constitutional, offices and institutions which are given the mandate to do that work. And if we have an investigating arm in our country, which is constitutionally, has got powers by the constitution to do their work, what is it that they are not doing right? So the issue of corruption in the ministry, one would want to ask, at what point does it become a corruption? Is it a corruption when some people are not involved, and when some other people are involved, it is not, and it is a corruption when some people are left out? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves. At what point is it a corruption, or at what point does the ministry lose money? We cannot negate the fact that the donors themselves, they are saying we are finding some loopholes which we think that things were not done right. But what does the law say? What does the law say in terms of procuring all these items? And like what I've said, our Procurement and Disposal Act is a bit fake. There are some rooms which are left there for people to manipulate and to twist and somebody will argue that bending and twisting the law is not breaking. And maybe that is the loophole I would want to call them the smart people are using to make money, to mint money out of people, which is so unfortunate. So the question here is, at what point does this exercise become corruption? Does it become a corruption deal when Weda is not involved, or when Mutambo is not involved? Should I now start pronouncing it as a corrupt deal? And when I'm the person who is procuring, is that now a sweet and a smooth deal, or what is it? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. And once we address this issue, we need to address it conclusively, including the way the act is structured. because we need to understand that the people who are doing this business, they are also business people who go out there and look for money to do this business, and what are the procedure of paying these people, and maybe that is what is happening. So to me, I think there is a lot which need to be addressed rather than just saying we need to get a team to investigate. These people will not get nothing. We've been having commissions formed since time immemorial, and we have never had nothing or anybody found doing something wrong in procurement. Our laws does not give a room to give any good investigator like Weda to find a problem in the procurement process, because that law is the one which is
Okay, given that we have a lawyer as part of our panel this morning, Mr. Weda, could you tell us whether or not the law is inadequate in us being, in giving us a way of handling this particular matter?
No, the law is adequate. It is only that during emergency procurement, the law allows you to do direct tendering.
Okay.
And direct tendering was basically to save the situation of act fast. But you know, as human heart is, it is inclined to evil. Now, they then use it in a negative manner, to give it to friends, to give it to people. When it comes to questions on commission of inquiry, then there would be no reason. There would be no reason when you are talking about theft, you are talking about breach of the law, we are talking about corruption. The organs to investigate will be the DCI, the DPP, and the EACC. They are all there, fully funded with resources. If you are to select people to do a commission of inquiry, if the president is going to select, you select people, and it depends on people selected. You select a friend, you select the same people who are defending, you select people who are opposed, you select people who have no clues. The result would never change what is on the ground.
Okay.
The best will be investigated in terms of a criminal offense. And if people are found to have flouted the rule or acted wrongly, you charge them.
All right. Now let's move on to matters education, and we are being told about community learning, and the CS has outlined rules of engagement, and the teachers' participation in the community learning program will not be tied to their salaries. So this should not be a reason for them to feel forced into it or otherwise. This is according to the CS, George Magoha. What do you make of this? And this is on page 7 of the Standard this morning. What do you make of this, Mr. Weda?
I really don't understand what is going on in the mind of the minister and everybody else. I think those who are profiteering from the education system are pushing so hard for some form of learning to go on so that they make money and what it produces. What is the difference between gathering children under a tree in the estate and having them in school? What is the difference? We remove them from schools so that they don't gather, so that they don't spread the COVID among themselves, and they don't bring COVID home. Now, when you regather them and you put them together, then why not just take them back to school? I don't understand what's going on, other than the fact that those who are pushing for this want to make money from it, and therefore Corona is no longer their excuse. They don't care. They don't give a damn. So if it was learning itself, then how do we gather children all over from different schools, from different classes, from different ages, from different corners, under a tree or in a marketplace or in some hall, and then we put them together? Yet the closure was basically to keep them apart. Why not then just open schools and then we go on and take the risk? And if some people die, they die, and we go on. Where are they?
Mr. Weda, one would argue that if they gather at a field where there's a lot of space and perhaps don't have to travel all the way to their respective schools, maybe this lessens the danger that is posed by the spread of
virus. You know, when we closed, these children were in school. Now, one of the things, even churches, there are limited numbers. They want young people, they want a few people. So when you gather, now look at a situation where you take students from Mangu, you take students from Lembo, you take students from which village, all over, they are different classes, they are different ages, they are different organizations, different disciplines. Then you gather them in some estates are also very small. Some other people, children have to travel very far, and then there are no rules. When you gather, what's the difference between having them under a tree in town or in the village and having them in school? This is a new way of thinking, and the minister and the people should rethink. Some of us will not send our children to this quasi education.
Yeah.
If we think it is safe, we open schools. If there will be risk, people die, and we continue. Otherwise, this joke should stop. I am very serious about it. I'm very concerned.
Okay. Honorable Mutambo, do you think it is a joke that we are opting for community education rather than just sending kids back to their respective schools?
This is not a matter of thinking. This is a matter of knowing. This is a very big joke. There is no way you can purport to be putting people in either field and then you think that you are preventing them from getting this disease. If the purpose of closing the schools, like where it's putting it, was to avoid the contamination of this disease, then now you come again and you say, oh, no, we are not going to take you to school. We are going to take you to Kasarani Stadium where you will be standing 1 or 2 meters apart. What other equipment do you need to broadcast it to these students to get the learning voice from you? Which teacher will be able to pass the voice to this mammoth of gathering so that they can learn? It does not make any scientific sense at all. And I don't know how they are thinking when you say that we are going to have community learning. What is the difference between community? Is people coming together, whether they are children or they are mature people. And what you say community learning, that you are going to take them to either marketplace or to a field somewhere. There's a lot of issues which we need to raise when we are told that to send our children to an open ground. And at one point, these children, they will meet. What we are trying to avoid is for the children to do contact or to meet with one another. And I want to tell you, children are children. There's no way you will tell my son or my daughter not to greet or not to say hi to their friend, and they don't know whether their friend are infected or not. You don't know whether this teacher is infected or not. So there's no point of just telling us that the Ulabalu of we have a community learning. This does not make sense. They need to rethink this. If they want schools to be reopened, let them reopen the school and say how it is going to secure our children. Because the issue here is the expert opinion of people being together. And that's why we are avoiding, we are keeping social distance. You, as KTN, you have a very big room there where we sometimes do our news, but you opted to be using us in our homes. Why? Because we don't know whether Mutambo is sick or whether is sick or any other person you are bringing into that studio is sick. And if this is the norm, then it should be practiced everywhere until we get the cure or until we get a way of handling this disease. So far, we do not have any medicine to it, and we cannot just risk our children by somebody coming up saying that we are going to have community learning and we are going to send children to Nyayo Stadium. So if you want a child to learn, send them to Nyayo Stadium or send them to Bukungu Stadium or send them to Muzela Garden. What about those areas where they do not have those areas? Are we going to put them in the bush? And who said that when you are under a tree, you are safe, you cannot contract this COVID? It is quite insane.
Yes. Now, okay, both of the panelists feel that we should have stuck to our guns as far as reopening schools next year. But far from that, the Daily Nation this morning is leading with a political story that is focusing on the presidency. The title for this story this morning is Uhuru's firm grip on power in COVID season. Now, according to this article, since the virus struck, the president made major strides in political march of his deputy, and with talk of a reshuffle once cabinet returns from recess, the pandemic seems to have been a blessing in a storm, provided very optimal conditions to actually make moves politically that are in favor of his presidency. What do you make of this, Mr. Weda?
I really don't think he's having a tight grip of power. What I think is basically during this lockdown, he was able to kick around his deputy here and there and to injure some of his core supporters. What do I mean by that? Removing the DP allies in Parliament, the Senate, and in the National Assembly, and to take charge. That is what is done. And along the way, there have been rumors before that the DP allies are supposed to be swept out of cabinet. So this is what appears to be a tight grip on power. But it is more because they no longer work together. So the fact that the deputy president is quiet makes it sound loud, and you can hear the deputy president say, I'm observer and I'm doing this. So it gives the president power in the sense that he's able to pronounce these people cannot meet. So when you meet, you will be tear gas. When Halwale meets, he'll be beaten up. When other people meet, when he goes to Kwamaiko to address a mammoth rally, that is okay. But I think if the deputy president was to do that, he will be tear gas. This is what appears to be tight grip. Otherwise, it is just the usual operation with a bit of quietness, and then he has sent fears. People are chilling fears among cabinet members, among other people. And this is more in preparation to amending the constitution and preparing for his exit, assuming he will exit, than to have a lot of power. The constitution has not given him any extra power. There has not been limitation to his power before. It is only that he's been doing it before in consultation with his deputy, but now he's doing it alone, maybe with the deep state.
Now, Honorable Mutambo, the article says the president took advantage of restrictions to put his Jubilee House in order and take control of parliament and state projects. It also says since the virus struck, the head of state has made major strides in taming ambitious political march of the DP William Ruto. What is your take on this story?
I think the statement is not right because the president does not need these restrictions to take any actions. The history is there with us that president has done changes before, even before COVID, and the issue of handshake came before COVID. And when they joined hands with Raila before COVID came in, a lot of things had happened there in between. And the people who actually feel it are the politicians like us who knows the repercussions of the handshake or the good things which was brought by the handshake and the bad things which were brought by the handshake. The politicians and also Kenyans knows very well what has been happening and what has been going under the carpet. So I don't think it is the issue of the COVID or it is the issue of the break which the president is using to do whatever he is supposed or is mandated to do by the constitution. He has all the powers to do the reshuffle. He has all the powers to do away with the people whom you think that they are not toying or they are not inclining to the either party or to his structure of management or governance. So he has the right powers to do whatever he thinks is right for the country. So the issue of saying that he may do this because of the window of lockdown or that and this, to me, I don't agree with it, because even without, he can effect whatever changes he so wishes. It is within his powers given by the Constitution. Remember, he's the only president elected in this country. We do not have two presidents, and he has nobody to consult. He has no one to ask, what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. He can do that as per the governance issues, that I have my deputy, or I have my people, I have my kitchen cabinet, I have so-called deep state to consult, but it is the powers rests with him to do whatever he wants to do with his cabinet. So, and this business of reshuffle, I've heard that song for so long, and I have never seen it happen. So I'm not even surprised that something will happen. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't come, we leave it at that. It is within his discretion to do what he thinks is right.
Mm-hmm. And far from that, and we have an interview of Chief Justice David Maraga right here, who has said explicitly that he has no regrets on the poll case. He says attacks on the judiciary are all meant to influence his decision to make him change from his convictions. Briefly, Mr. Wedder, what do you make of this being part of this, the legal side of things?
I think Chief Justice Maraga will be remembered for his courage. The poll decision case, I also have always maintained was wrong. Wrong in the sense that they used wrong principles. But I laud him and his colleagues for what I would call courage. A country growing like our country needs a courageous judiciary where you can take the president, the deputy president, the power barons, all the cartels. You can be in court on one and you win. that we need, and it has allowed us to grow some judges who can be strong enough. Because the executive, you have seen, they can be very forbearing. They can want to rule every limb. So he has resisted, and for that reason, the judiciary has attracted some heat, but it is good in growth. So we will remember him. I will remember him fondly as a courageous Chief Justice. Mutunga left. He also was an independent-minded Chief Justice, and we trust that the one who will come will combine courage and independent-mindedness and focus. The executive, even if I was the president, I would still try to overreach. It is the duty of those who are in their areas, like parliament or judiciary, to resist and ensure that their functions are done properly and strictly. It is not going to cry to the executive, oh, executive, beat us again, give us again. It is their role to ensure that when an executive overreaches, you stop them. I can assure you that we'll remember it fondly, but Martha Sabet, he didn't get it well on administration, internal administration. That he got a bit loose, but that is covered by his level of courage, which is good for this country. We'll remember him for a long, long time for that.
Now, we shall be continuing with our guests on the other side of this break. And before we get into that, perhaps Mike could tell us what's coming up.
Yes, we're looking forward to the next segment, which is The Way It Is, and we're going to be looking at the role of opposition, particularly as it has been brought up in the COVID-19 funds that have gone missing, and we have seen the church stepping in, and we'll be finding out whether that's the role that they should